And my agenda is bigger than me. If I have an agenda and Mr. Maraga or anybody else can drive it better than I can drive it, I would let them drive it, as long as the agenda is the agenda. If I'm the best driver, then let me drive it. But more than anything else, it's not Maraga, it's not Omtatah, it's the agenda. And I tell everybody, I am not the Messiah. And no Kenyan can be the Messiah. The law is the Messiah. An activist is the thing you are required to be. Even Jesus Christ was an activist. He demanded, he got out, he even took a whip and lashed people in the temple for their vices. So activism is the demand, is the obligation of every Kenyan. If we all were activists and refused to bow down to nonsense, what is happening would not be happening today. So the best executive you can have is an activist who demands that the right thing be done now and then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take another.
So
yeah.
The other thing was on what...
The specifics.
What specifics.
Yes.
I've been touching on the issue of, for me, I have targeted 5 chapters in the Constitution.
After listening and analyzing the Citizen TV interview with Yvonne Okwara, the African journalist is convinced Okiya Omtatah stands out as the only man who truly qualifies to be the next president of Kenya. He blends humility with profound knowledge of governance and the Constitution, quoting it with precision and clarity. In his words, you hear maturity. In his reasoning, you see a deep understanding of a president's true duties. This is leadership grounded in principle, not politics.
You say your exploratory team has traversed 31 counties, yet to visit Western Kenya or Busia, where you come from?
We'll go there last.
Why? Most people go to their home counties first.
My political base is not tribal, not regional. So I began just from around Nairobi, going. I'll get to Western. I believe in Kenya as a single unit. To me, there's no Kikuyu, there's no Luo, there's no Luya, there's no Teso, there's no Giriama, there's no El Molo. A Kenyan is a Kenyan. And the end part of this country, I belong. So I just chose to begin from where it was feasible. In fact, we began in Kajiado. Then from Kajiado, we did the group went to the counties in Central. Then from there, they went to the coast, the former coast province. Then they came and did part of Nyanza and part of the lower rift. The middle rift, may I call it middle rift. That's Bomet, Kericho, that. We are here to do Eldoret, Elgeyo, Baringo, as we go on to Turkana. Then there is, of course, Marsabit. We have got Isiolo. We did Isiolo. Isiolo and Marsabit we have done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I want us to talk about the seat of the presidency, and what we've seen so far is that it actually comes with money and power. I think, like you said just before the break, where it would seem each occupant leaves perhaps wealthier than they went in. Is that something, is that an assessment you would agree with?
Yeah, because when you look at the legacy has been that the president has been abused. And the president mostly and the people around him tend to use that power to accumulate, to do primitive accumulation of wealth. And but it's not just the president. If you look around Kenya, the rich people are people who have been civil servants, senior civil servants, or politicians. Hardly people who have become rich in industry. You can count them on your fingers, those who have become rich through industry. So one thing has been that right from independence, the power of money, the president has controlled money. Call him the prime minister, the president, he has controlled money. And so he has had the power of controlling the armed forces, command of the armed forces, the power of the sword, the chief executive, and also having the power of being the treasurer of the country. And that's why when you end up with an imperial presidency. If we have to do anything in this country, to transform this country, we must take money away from the president and put it securely in parliament. That's when we shall have a sober, we're not going to love sober politics. This money you see people running around with is money stolen from the consolidated fund. In fact, I think a month ago, I raised a question on the floor of the Senate, a statement I'm waiting to be answered. I usually read something the Treasury publishes. It's called the Statement of Actual Revenue and Net Expenditure, Net Exchequer Issues. So that gives you a statement how much has been collected, how much has been spent, and stuff like that. So when you look at the estimates for the salaries of people who are paid from the consolidated fund, there are about 19 people, judges, 19 categories, judges, constitutional commissioners, the president, and those kind of officers. Their budget was 4.2 billion for the whole year, which means they were to be paid. The payments per month came to about 301 million. And from July, 1st July, when they began paying, from that 1st July, they have been paying that money. In January, they paid that money plus they added 19.6 billion on top and paid out. Then in February, they went back to 301 million. Now the question is, 19.6 billion shillings is taken out in the name of the salaries of judges. And you know, in this country, the president is the same, the judges are the same. We have not had any changes in that cadre. And salaries are usually fixed. You know how salaries are. The estimates were never changed. But 19.6 billion shillings is taken out of the public finances, and it just disappears into thin air. So I've raised a question on the floor of the Senate, saying, Mr. Mbadi, can you come and tell me where did this money go? Who authorized it? And why was it taken out in the name of salaries for constitutional office holders? You see. So these are the kind of things that we're dealing with. And now that kind of money, once it is taken out, that's the money you find being used to confuse people. Big donations in churches, what have you. Right now, the deputy president is going around. I don't know what they're calling it, but it's giving out a lot of money, moving around and doing all that. And this is money that's being taken from taxes of people. This money that's being taken from loans, very expensive loans that we are taking. And then it's just being splashed around, no plan for it, and basically running us into a ditch.
So this is the talk of money and power post-election. But then
Yes.
there's also the question of money and power, or particularly money, pre-election.
Yes.
Senator, there's various estimates of presidential campaigns that put funding of a presidential race upwards of 3 billion shillings. And we're told that this is a conservative figure. It could comfortably go up to 5 billion.
I was told I need, my friend Chererke told me I need a minimum of 7 billion.
7, okay. So tell us, how much do you have so far? Are you closer to 3 billion or to 7 billion?
I've not started my presidential campaign, but you see, I'm looking for relatives and friends. Maybe there are relatives in this court. There are people who are civic Republicans in this country. They want a republic that is run in a very civil way. And so those civic Republicans will be able to come together. I've reached out to some who have money, some don't have money, they don't have as much money, but there is the goodwill is there, that once the campaign rolls out, they'll be able to fund. Because what I'm trying to do is, I'm beginning a plan whereby people are adopting. Like I've got one person who has said, he has a group of people who have said that they want to sponsor offices for the political party I'll be running on. They want to sponsor offices. And they want to do that. So money is something we know is required, but we are also trying to organize and be able to get clean money, which does not tie us down. There's a lot of that's available. There are many people who want to see this country move forward. There's a lot of money locally that's available. Even people have knocked on my door saying, can we begin contributing? I've said no. Until I have structures to receive public money, I cannot receive any coin. Right now what I'm doing, I'm able to fund from my pocket. So I'm not receiving any money from people yet.
So who's paying, for instance, the 10-member committee?
I'm not paying it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And funding all their travels across the country?
Yes, I have the money to do that.
Okay.
And it's legitimate money that I make from my businesses, where I earn some here and there, and then we put together, it becomes a tidy sum in my terms. Also, my consumption. One thing we forget, the first line of income is lifestyle. I live a very simple life. I don't spend a lot of money on myself. So that also saves me a lot of money. So my incomes are able to do what we are doing right now, and are comfortably so. And I think that once we are finished with that, and we have launched out properly, and we have got there's a clear framework, we'll be able to tell the people who have been telling us they want to come on board and support, you can come on board. I just got an email today from somebody who is saying they would like to print all my rec merchandise and sponsor that kind of line of business. Because that's one thing money requires. And also the other thing is that we are not trying to work towards buying votes. We want to win votes. So the impeachment of Gachagua for me was a witch hunt. So that money to succeed. And it was a very shameful way it was conducted. So I don't think it is something I can hold up that it was normal business.
So you voted no for his impeachment. Was that due to a procedural technicality or a legal one?
There were two things.
Pointed out. Or is it because you believe that he is a man of integrity and was not guilty of the accusations that were placed before him?
Well, what I know is that he was accused of things that required the OCS to handle, not the Senate. When you accuse somebody that he messed up the brother's will, honestly, this is a man who is a deputy president. He does not enjoy immunity from prosecution. He can be taken to law enforcement. And that's why I was saying that it was wrong to use the standard for impeaching the president to impeach the deputy president. Because the president cannot be taken before law enforcement. The president is immune to it. In fact, like today I was seeing something in the newspapers, an advocate was writing and saying, is the president immune from everything? Is it possible that if the president's wife wanted to divorce him today, would the president be immune? Would that woman have to wait until he's out of office? Or things like those. But what I'm saying here is that the vice president does not enjoy immunity from prosecution. The list of things proffered against him were matters that could be handled through law enforcement. I don't see why they had to be brought to the Senate.
But what were your thoughts around him and his conduct as deputy president? Because there was a lot in terms of the accusations that he was preferring a tribal agenda with some of the statements that he'd made about shareholders and who receives development from the government. What are your thoughts around him?
And that was the flaw. That's why the thing about that is that Mr. Gachagua was not alone in that. Gachagua, Mr. Wetangula and Mr. Mudavadi were promised 30%. Whether they cashed it or not, I don't know. So there was that thing where these people shared this country, they carved the country up. And the reason was that the presidency is imperial. It controls all the money. So they begin trying to share something out. And so, maybe because Mr. Wetangula and Mr. Mudavadi had their political parties, they were able to negotiate. Mr. Gachagua, I think, belonged to the same political party with the president. So maybe he could not have a way of negotiating. But when you looked at the evidence that was brought in the Senate, that was played out there, this guy was basically enforcing the MOU. Flawed as it was, I could not hold it against him that he was saying that his people were promised this because they came into this arena as tribes. They never came in as Kenyans. So they came in as tribes. And so everybody had to fight for his group. And if you can look at it, look at what happened in health. they've had changes in health until Mr. Dwale came in. But look at the two changes, the two lady CSS were basically people from Bungoma, you see. So this thing was shared. We cannot say it was not shared. Mr. Weta was promised to be Speaker of the National Assembly. He resigned his position as a senator and he went and he picked it up. Mr. King was promised to be the Speaker of the Senate. He's the Speaker of the Senate. So if Mr. Gachagua was promised something and was not given, for heaven's sake, he had the right to blow the vuvuzela and say, my friend, where's my deal? So that's what came out on the face of it. So, but if that was the issue, we have got expertise. We have got the National Integration, whatever is it called, Commission.
NCIC.
Yeah, NCIC. Yeah. We should have had a report from NCIC. Nobody made a complaint to NCIC. Some of these things, if somebody is driving a tribal agenda, it's even a criminal. You can prosecute him. He's just our deputy president. So why it had to be politicized and weaponized to a point whereby this guy had to be hoarded out the way he was is something I don't understand whether he's a good man or bad. I am a man who believes that you give the devil his due.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you work with him?
I would work with him, why not? But it will be on the question of the ideological framework.
Do you believe?
I am a civic Republican.
Okay. So from what you've seen, in his public life, do you feel like your ideologies are a match?
I've not seen an ideology emerge from any of the opposition camp. And I think even I think President Ruto has asked the opposition, to the so-called united opposition, to show its policy.
Yeah.
I think President Ruto has been challenging them on that ground. So I've also not seen a policy framework that has come from there, other than one term and Ruto must go.
If there is a policy that you agree with, you would work with, say,
if it is a policy,
president?
If it's a policy framework that begins with dismantling the executive presidency, I will support anybody who helps us achieve the emancipation of Kenya. And remember, I'm not using the word liberation. I'm using the word emancipation, the emancipation of Kenyans. Because in my estimation, if we may use biblical terms, the march to Canaan is not from Egypt. It's from Babylon. We need Nehemiah, not Joshua, to lead us. So if we are going to have that, and we have a clear policy agreement, not an agreement of tribes, okay? That agreement of tribes, I cannot be part of it. But if there's a clear position, as a civic Republican that I am, I'm not a neoliberal, I'm a civic Republican. As a civic Republican, then I look at that and I say, okay, we are going to have small government, we are going to stress production, we are going to ensure that we want to see rich Kenyans on the grassroots, we want to make Kenyans wealthy on the grassroots, we want to reduce taxation, we want to see people with disposable income so that at the month end you can go in your local shopping center and when you want to improve your house, you are able to pay for somebody to weld a window for you, somebody to come and paint for you, and then we rotate the money in the economy by allowing people to keep money in their pay slips. If that clear agenda comes out, that we are not going to allow public office to be used for private gain, that we are going to punish thieves who steal from the public, that we are going to recover all the stolen assets, public assets that have been stolen, we are going to recover and bring them. I don't care whether the man is a saint, as long as he supports that agenda. And we agree on that agenda and we implement it. And of course, if he has stolen that agenda, we'll lock him up.
I'd like us to talk about money for a bit, and we'll come back and talk about what that race would look like and its management. But first, there is something that you have been talking about for a couple of years now, I believe. And this is the premise, the concept, or the theory of ODS debt. Some would say it's criminal. The basic rule ni dawa ya deni ni kulipa.
Yes, kama deni, the assumption in that statement is that una deni. Na kama una deni unalipa nini? Unakunywa dawa ya nini kama una ugonjwa? The issue is from 2008. I think 2008, 2007, I published my first article in the Daily Nation on odious debt. And odious debt is nothing but a debt that is borrowed outside the law and does not benefit the people. It benefits individuals. So I've written to a point I decided to do an audit of the documents on debt, both from the Treasury and from the Central Bank. They're available, or the documents are available online. And I was able to establish that we have really been scammed. And I did that. I've not looked at the debt from 2013 backwards, the year 2013 going back. I didn't look at that. I began at 2014 when the new constitution came in, and it had very clear parameters. And at the time when they came in, when we took over, when President Ruto took over, and President Uhuru took over from President Kibaki, our debt was about 2.7 trillion. But it has grown exponentially to today, where we are at about 11.7 trillion from the central bank. And when you look at that money, you look at the Constitution, you find that the Constitution has a clear structure of how prescribes how debt should be borrowed. So when you use the rule, the marking scheme in the Constitution to audit our debt, then you find that the debt we borrowed legitimately over the last 12 years, because I did it up to 30th November last year. I used 30th November last year because it was my birthday, and I said, I want to end on my birthday going backwards. So, and those are the documents are not available for going forward. So, up to 30th November 2024, the debt that was outstanding, when you looked at it, you found that the legitimate debt that we had borrowed was about 3 trillion.
All right, and by legitimate debt versus illegitimate debt?
Legitimate debt is debt that was approved by Parliament.
Yes.
It has been included in the budget, It's been approved by Parliament, the lender is known, the project is known. The legitimate debt is about 3 trillion, slightly 2 point something. But then we have paid that debt over and above by 3 trillion, that particular debt. But now when you go to this other debt that is odious, you will find that a lot of this money, when you try to trace it in the economy, you don't see where this money has gone. Debts are borrowed, no money comes into the economy. Like take the classic example of the Eurobond. In total, the Eurobonds came to $7 billion US. None of that money can be traced in the economy. And something very interesting happened in 2014 when these people now, after they settled in power, decided to steal on the revenue side, because they saw that Kenyans were very focused on the expenditure side. So what Marara was doing, Kebaso was going out saying, look at this project, it was budgeted for so much, it was never done, whatever. That's a very small part of the scam. The big part now they decided was to move on the revenue side. Steal money before it enters into the circulation. So they began this thing, and in 2014, they introduced in Section 57 of the Public Finance Management Act, they added in 2 provisions that allowed them, that the Cabinet Secretary could open offshore accounts where they could receive the money and pay the money offshore for whatever they're paying. Unlike what the Constitution requires, that all money raised by the government comes to the consolidated fund, then it is appropriated by Parliament, then it is supervised by the control of budget. So they changed the law and allowed themselves to borrow. And that's why you see there's a lot of borrowing, that we see money is being borrowed. You don't see this money coming in.
Okay.
Number 2, the president keeps on borrowing without permission of the Parliament as it's required, because again the same Parliament got excited and came up with something called the debt ceiling. Mm-hmm. A debt ceiling was something that came up during the World War in the US, And they began allowing the executive to borrow money before Congress approves so that they could deal with the emerging situation in the war. And so we borrowed that bad habit, which, by the way, has left the Americans with, I think, $38 trillion in debt today. And so today, that's why they have the debt ceiling in the system. We are doing our things. So the president is not the one who is borrowing money, not parliament.
I want to ask this because this is something that's not been applicable in international law. And a lot of this debt, including the Eurobond that you mentioned, is debt taken from outside the country's borders. How would you be able to enforce this in the international community that doesn't formally recognize this theory of odious debt?
I think it's not correct to say that the international community does not recognize it. Go back to the American war again, when the Americans kicked the Spaniards out of Cuba.
That was in
Yes.
1800s?
Yes.
In the 19th century?
No, in the 18th century.
Yeah.
They were able to, that's when the doctrine of odious debt begins. Mm-hmm. You have gone ahead and you have seen what happened with the tuna gate in Mozambique. What happened in Mozambique? Debts have been declared unconstitutional. But what we want to do, the beautiful thing about the Kenyan debt, that a lot of this money was borrowed and stashed abroad. It's a question of tracking this money. The individuals who borrowed the money, we know them. The people who signed on these things, we know them. So all we'll do is to get these people around the table and ask them to tell us where this money is.
Yeah, but
and if we have to pay that debt, okay, and even the lender, we'll have to get the lender around the table and we sit around and show that some of these debts were just outright fraud. And I will tell you that it has happened. Do you remember the case of Ali? What do you call them? The free what? These shops at the airport. What are they called?
Duty free. The
duty free shops. When Ali sued Kenya in Washington, and it was when he had been kicked out, and in the affidavit, just a paragraph in the affidavit, he said that he had bribed Moi to get that, the deal, the contract for the duty-free shops.
Yeah.
His case was thrown out in Washington, and Kenya did not pay that debt. So here we have got a way that we can demonstrate that it was against the public policy of the Republic of Kenya to incur debt in the manner it was done. And so we'll sit across the table with the lenders, and we shall also follow the fellows who misappropriated the money, the regime owners, and have them see how we are going to pay this debt. If we have to take money from the Kenyan taxpayer, then the first thing we have to do is to auction these people who are in power, who are borrowing these funny debts. And some of them are richer than this country. We shall auction them.
Yeah, but
and track money where they have stashed money.
Senator,
yes.
The case you are referring to is that of an individual. When it comes to a state, I think, to refer to the case that you're mentioning was in 1923. Between the US and Cuba, Costa Rica, the United Kingdom. These are international institutions. Who then is the body that would be instituted that would then make the assessment that the debt is odious, that it was illegitimate, that would then be able to hear this matter? Perhaps an ICC of sorts is some of the theories I've heard. Perhaps on this other end. And that would require a couple of things. One, determining that the debt is odious. Two, determining that perhaps the regime is illegitimate. All the regimes you've mentioned were duly elected by the people of Kenya. So how would this work exactly in terms of enforcing this with lenders who are not...
First of all, we need to use our judiciary. We have a judicial system in this country. We have to use our judiciary to establish, because the money is being paid from our coffers, we have to use our judiciary to establish that this money was stolen from Kenya. Debt leads to poverty. Debt leads to violation of human rights. Debt is leading to instability. You have seen what has happened in this country because of the high taxation. You see people are poor.
But that's not the fault of the lender, is it, Senator?
Now, it's a human rights issue. There are many courts. You have got the International African Court of Human Rights here. You have got the International Court, the European Court on Human Rights. You have seen them even fine the British government to pay the Mau Mau. So there are legal frameworks, international and local, that can be invoked to enforce this.
My point is, Senator,
but for now,
at what point do you say the reason that debt is causing poverty and overtaxation, is that the lender's fault or is that the borrower's fault?
No, it's the lender's fault.
The lender
because
would be asking, why should I pay for poor management of this money?
No, it's not poor management. It's not a poor management. I've told you that the debt you have borrowed is less than 3 trillion and you have paid it fully. The debt you have borrowed. A lender should only lend where we are borrowing through the budget. The lender must look at the legal framework of Kenya.
So you're saying the lender has
yes.
Are you saying
the lender is complete? It takes two to tango. The lender is as guilty as the one who borrowed. When we are lending money outside the law of that country, what are you up to? When you lend money outside the law of the country, what are you up to? The law has said, the people of Kenya have said, our government can only borrow money through the front door. Why are you lending money through the back door? So you see, the lender is responsible.
Who are some of those lenders that you think are complicit?
Well, a lot of the Chinese loans have been given to us through the back door. The Eurobond that I mentioned, it was given to us in the wrong way. And there are so many other debts. Now, if you look at many of the debts that we are getting also today, you are getting that most of the debts, most of the loans that are coming in are in A and A form. That's appropriation in aid. Yeah. So we are not getting money coming into the economy. We are getting appropriation in aid, which does not allow us to exercise the oversight of parliament, which does not allow us to exercise the oversight of the control of budget. So the money is paid offshore. What comes here is not money, but the debt. They purport to come and do their work here. So there's a whole line of things that need to be followed. But the legal framework right now, with the way the world has been sensitized, you can be able to make a very strong case if you link this reckless lending to its consequences, at what it's having today.
So you're saying here, Senator, if I understand you correctly, that the Chinese and those who lent us through the Eurobond did so illegitimately, illegally? What are you saying?
Yes, they did so that way.
So do you intend to sue them in some international court? What court would that be? What law would you...
Well, I've already sued Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto in the local courts. The matter has been given a 3-judge bench to a certified weighty. I'm demanding quite a bit, 4.6 trillion from Uhuru and his regime. And so far I'm demanding 2.3 trillion from Mr. Ruto, President Ruto, total of 6.9 trillion, that I'm saying these guys borrowed this money. This money did not come into this economy. And Article 236, Clause 5 of the Constitution says, any public official, politician or civil servant, who makes the public to lose money by acting against the law or somehow, is personally liable whether in office or not. That is not an idle provision in our law. We want to test that provision. I'm testing it in our courts, and I'm testing it against the former President Uhuru Kenyatta. I'm testing it against the current President William Ruto. And
then you will seek to do this internationally as well with the lenders? Because you've mentioned the Chinese government here being...
If we deal with these guys, the local guys who are taking this money and are hiding it, the first option we'll give them is, gentlemen, just bring this money back. Do what the Zakayo did. Bring this money back. And when he climbed down the sycamore tree, he said, I'll release it, I'll pay back and whatever. Okay. Bring back the money, we draw a line under it. If they don't bring back the money, we have to deal with them as fugitives.
What would a President Okiya Omtatah do, considering that whoever wins the next election, even if that includes, even if that be the current president, will inherit that 11 trillion plus debt, whatever that'll have been by 2027. What would you do regarding this issue of debt? Would the first thing you say on day one is to not pay that debt?
The odious part of the debt, we'll have to have a mechanism not to pay it.
So you're saying You will not pay that debt?
I will not pay that debt until we get a clear framework of who lent, why they lent, who borrowed, what they borrowed, what did the money do. We are not going to negotiate that one because it has become existential. Right now, 82 shillings, if you look at the case I filed, we have demonstrated that 82 shillings out of every 100 shillings that the taxpayer the Kenya Revenue Authority collects goes to do what? To repay debt.
And what if there are sanctions that will be, would you be ready for that?
Sanctions, we shall deal with it. And I don't think the sanctions will come easy, because we shall be going through against targeted people. We shall try to look for partnerships. I don't think the European governments, I don't think the American government are in bed with these people who have done this to us. I don't think they're in bed with them. So this money is good luck. Most of this money is stashed in those economies. We'll seek their help to help us recover that money and give it back to the lenders. And also follow the assets of these people who have the local players, follow their assets in Dubai, in London, in New York, in Paris, in Australia, liquidate that asset and pay these debts. So that what I'm trying to say is that whichever way the debt is paid, the ordinary Kenyan taxpayer is not the one supposed to pay that debt. The government must come up and deal with these criminals, recover the assets, and pay off. And that's why I said in my opening remarks that I'll work with anybody who is agreeable to those irreducible minimums. But if somebody just wants to replace Ruto so that he can now take over the system and continue committing sins against the Republic of Kenya, I cannot work with such a fellow. There has to be a deliberate and clear pathway to transforming this country so that after 2027, the presidency will not be as attractive as it is today.
Let's talk about privatization of state corporations, and that's also a question I've seen many of the viewers asking tonight. What's your take on that? Some of these are coming as requirements from donor funders who are looking at how state-owned enterprises are being run. And let's start with the latest one, the announcement of the intended privatization of the Kenya Pipeline Corporation. Is this the way to go, and how far do we go before it becomes negative? I mean, there's even talk about the public universities and whether they are a going concern in this country anymore.
The Kenya Pipeline, first of all, before I answer that question, I want you to look at what's written here. The record thing is respect Kenya, okay? We are going to respect Kenya. That's the first thing we are going to do. Kenya Pipeline Corporation is a profit-making entity. It's not in the red. Why are we being pushed out? So that private enterprises can take over? And that's a strategic asset. It is strategic to this country to control that. It is making a profit. Why is it being targeted? So, and that's why, again, another thing I have, as a civic Republican, in civic republicanism, we believe in the primacy of political action over market forces. Market forces must come in to serve within an environment whereby the net reward is the development of the people, not their being impoverished. So, the markets will come in, but the markets will not reduce the government to a mere tax collector. The government will have to remain as a provider of goods and services.
What are your thoughts on the cause of the Gen Z? Is it still alive? Has it been swallowed by the cracks of politics?
It has not died.
Yeah.
It is even a wave. It crests, comes down, crests, comes down. And the Gen Z should not be seen as a simple uprising. It's part of a revolution. This revolution was begun even before these young people were born. It began in the 80s, where there was heavy clamor for multipartyism, then change of the constitution, and so the constitution was given. And so this, to me, is like the final phase of the push, which is saying, implement the constitution. So they are completing the revolution. They are not starting an uprising or whatever. And I don't think that push to implement the constitution has been defeated. Although I know there are forces organized like NADCO. NADCO is organized to defeat that particular process of implementing the constitution by saying change the constitution, you see. So with the implementation of the constitution, which some of us are pushing, our political agenda is basically that we want to implement this constitution to create all the institutions that are required to manage this country, to separate power the way it is supposed to be separated into the three arms of government, and to leave Kenya with a functioning presidential system. That's what needs to be done. And the president, as a president, not as an emperor, the imperial president to be destroyed. And that one is a revolution that is nearing its end right now. And you can see across the country, people are demanding that the constitution be upheld, the constitution be implemented, and the rule of law be primary in our engagements in the public space.
So last year when there was, let me speak about after the 2024 June protests, then came the broad-based government, whose proponents say, it was to stabilize the country. Has it, in your view?
It did not. The only way they could have stabilized the country, and I regretted why Baba did it, because I once had an engagement with him at his place, and he told me that we should never, ever work with Ruto. Baba should have come out and crowned his struggle for the many things he's done for this country. He should have come out and demanded that now that the things are where they are, and Ruto is on his back foot, he should resign. Let the Speaker of the National Assembly take over power for the 90 days. We organize a fresh election. We elect a new executive. The Constitution provides for that. He should have enforced that. The Constitution does not provide for what happened. The broad-based government is not found in the Constitution. And therefore, and again, whereby you find that the same thing, you don't even understand what it is when in the House, they sit on the minority side, but they are pushing the majority agenda. You see, so that confusion is not there. And I was telling you earlier on, maybe it is we who were fooled, but maybe there are people who had the same blood group, and therefore ODM could easily transfuse blood to Kenya Kwanza and revive it. Or ODM is a universal donor, so you could simply donate blood to Kenya Kwanza and revive it. Otherwise, we should have had the moment whereby we drew the line in the sand and said, this cannot continue. Go back to the people. You have lost legitimacy. The parliament has been overrun. You have lost legitimacy. Let us go back to the people and hold fresh elections.
So what are you saying about the presidency of William Ruto?
It's illegitimate.
Parliament?
Illegitimate.
Senate?
Of course, Parliament constitutes of the Senate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the National Assembly and the Senate?
Yeah.
You believe the
what happened is that we needed to go back for a fresh mandate after 25th July.
Everyone?
All of us should have gone for a fresh mandate.
Okay.
Because remember, the bill had gone through, particularly the National Assembly.
Yeah.
And it had gone through and people were out on the street saying, don't do it. And so all these things that had happened, people had been killed on the streets, on the floors of Parliament, people had been shot dead, Parliament had been desecrated. So our terms should have terminated. We go for a fresh mandate and say we begin afresh, we hold elections and we move on. Of course, there would be the small question of there being no IBC.
Yes.
But that's whereby, again, there would be, with the kind of transitional mechanism that would have come up, we would simply have had what we had with the IPPG, whereby we were able to get political parties to constitute the electoral bloc, and for some good reason, you find that that's the only good elections we ever had in this country were the ones under that IPPG arrangement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The human rights space, this is a place where you've cut your teeth for as long as I think members of the public have known you. What's your assessment of the state of that space in light of recent events we've seen in the country, abductions, killings? We're even seeing this spreading out to other countries in the region, Uganda, Tanzania, and others.
Yeah, it is an extremely sad state of affairs. I think 1 month ago, there were some awards being given. I was given an award for fighting for human rights. My friend Boniface Mwangi was the runner-up. And when I looked at that award, I accepted it, but inside my heart, I felt that it was a statement of failure. That 15 years after the new constitution, somebody could still be being awarded for fighting for human rights. It's really sad. That tells you how sad it is. You have seen people being gunned down. You have seen people being charged of terrorism. You have seen all that is happening. The human rights space is bad. When it comes from away from governance, you got the other human rights that are not about governance, like in terms of health, education, everything is collapsing. These rights are going. And I think something needs to be done urgently on that front. I just saw in the news that Bishop of Nairobi, the Most Reverend His Grace Anyolo, say that what is happening to education is killing the nation. Nothing could be truer than that. Because Kenya has established itself as a powerhouse in Africa and in the world, not because that we have got an extractive economy. We don't sell minerals, we don't do anything. It's because of the brain power that Kenyans have. It's the schools. Our biggest resource has been the human resource. And the school system is the one that has generated this powerful economy you call Kenya and the African continent. So anything happening to education is really bad. And then you look at it and you go back to the Constitution. If you look at Article 53, Clause B, it says every child is entitled to free and compulsory education. Now, if it is free and if it is compulsory, then the state is a duty bearer. You see, it's compulsory education. So, but you find what is happening. The government comes up with fee structures. The government comes up with all manner of things. Now education is for the rich and stuff like that. So the human rights situation right now, I'm sorry to say, is I think worse than it was under President Mwai Kibaki with the old constitution. This, the Uhuru government and the Ruto government have not been good to this country. They have been a disaster.
I want us to look forward now to where we go from here. There's talk of dialogue, intergenerational conclave. What do we do? Where do we go from here, Senator? And how do we get there?
That dialogue is a death trap. The dialogue that was supposed to happen happened and was codified in the Constitution. Let us implement it. And this country will be at peace. Let us implement the Constitution the way it is. This country will be at peace. There's no dialogue. Who will be dialoguing with who? How do you dialogue to get the money in schools? How do you dialogue to generate to stop the crazy taxes which are going to pay these odious debts? What will the dialogue achieve? What did the dialogue? Basically, when somebody says let us dialogue, he's saying eliminate the grassroots, make it an elite exercise, bring lookalikes into a room and let them see how they can carve out the country. They don't want the struggle to be on the grassroots. Remember I said, whenever there's an attempted jailbreak, the game wardens come together and they decide to make sure that the prison remains a prison. So one of the tools that the game wardens are using is to get people into these things they are calling conclaves or dialogues and whatever. Remember the other day, you have seen them. Even that day, President Ruto met former President Uhuru. They are coming together. Just watch the space. If the ground remains restless, don't be surprised if all of the so-called, even the people in the so-called united opposition, joining the people in government to make sure that the prison that the Kenya is remains so that the wardens can be assured of a job. And some of us, our business is to break the prison. And we want to make sure that the prison is broken and the people get their emancipation, and then we have this country run as a republic under law, pursuing prosperity and nothing else. It's all over.
Yes, yes.
I think we should go beyond individuals and look at their agenda. If Mr. Maraga's agenda and my agenda are the same, there's no reason why I should run from different sides. But if his agenda is different from mine, there's no reason why I should team up with him. That's my answer.
Okay.
And so far, I've not seen Mr. Maraga's agenda. I'm waiting to see it. And maybe he has also not seen my agenda. He's waiting to see it.
Okay.
So if we have got a meeting of minds, it's not an issue. And my agenda is bigger than me. If I have an agenda and Mr. Maraga or anybody else can drive it better than I can drive it, I will let them drive it, as long as the agenda is the agenda. If I'm the best driver, then let me drive it. But more than anything else, it's not Maraga, it's not Omtatah, it's the agenda. And I tell everybody, I am not the Messiah. And no Kenyan can be the Messiah. The law is the Messiah. We just must have the courage to implement the law. And beginning with slaying the imperial presidency, taking the money away from the president. We must do that in the first 100 days in office. Then anybody can be president of this country and you'll be happy.
Yeah. Let's take another one here, because I know there's quite a few. Dr. Ayuka Francis, please ask the senator if he'll abolish the housing levy or maintain it. Also ask him what he would do with Shif.
Well, the housing levy, first of all, money has been charged. Houses have been built on public land. I will not just abolish the levy because I don't think it makes any sense. It's a very nonsensical issue. I litigated against it successfully in the High Court. I was success in the Court of Appeal. I got whopped in the Supreme Court, and so it stood.
Yeah.
I will do this. These houses are being built using public money. These houses are being built on public land. They cannot be sold to private individuals. So anybody buying it, other than me abolishing the tax, anybody buying it will be snatched that house. So don't buy those houses, because they are sitting on public land, and we do not convert public land to private land through housing.
So what would you do with those houses that have already been built?
Some will have to be brought down at the cost of Mr. William Ruto. We shall bring it down, and Ruto will have to pay the bill. There are houses that have been built on roads. I've just told you in Busia, they are putting up so many units inside the ATC, the training college. They are displacing the demonstration plots, they are doing all these things, they are putting concrete there. There have been so many nonsensical constructions that have gone around, because the aim of President Ruto is to create a market for building material, which he supplies to these things. We know it. He's supplying him with this guy of Devki. They are the ones making a kill out of these housing projects. So if we find that they have been put in an irregular place, they come down. In Mathare police station has got quite some land. There's a plan to put up housing, those affordable housing units there. In a situation like that, those houses have to go to the police. In fact, I expected that in Mathare, they would be upgrading the living conditions of the police by building them houses through the police budget, proper housing on their land they own. But they bring these affordable things to grab land from the police in Mathare and preferably sell it to private homeowners. You cannot tax me to build somebody a home, no. You can tax me to build social housing, whereby people can be accessing by rent, or people have fallen through the cracks can be housed by the government. But you cannot tax me to build somebody a home. That one is illegal, is immoral.
Shif?
Shif is a fraud scheme, but I may not want to speak quite a bit on it, because I'm litigating it in Parliament, in court,
yes.
And I'm challenging the use of what you call the specially permitted procurement procedure, which allows procurement to be done outside the law.
Okay.
So I don't know what the courts will say.
Let's leave it at that and see what happens with the courts. We have another one here from Richie254. says to you, glad you're addressing some government projects in Busia County. Give us a report about the Malaba municipal market. Since there's a tussle between you and the county government, I need clear feedback on that. Also, which party will you use to run for president, considering you ran as an independent for your current seat?
Now, to begin with...
Where do you want to begin? Because that's like three questions. Yes,
the fight I have with...
yeah.
Well, the brief story is this. This market was bought by the county council before the county government came in. And somehow... there was an attempt to... The documentation was destroyed. And the county government is trying to buy it back from whatever. So I'm suspecting collusion, but also I don't want to comment too much on it because I'm in court with the county government. I've stopped whatever was happening there, and so the court is looking into it to determine whether the market, the county government can buy a market that already belonged to the public. Okay. So it's still in court.
Just on that, can I just ask you, how many court cases do you have running at this point in time? Because they seem to be quite a few.
Yeah, when I look at, I was just looking at, I think I've got one case in the Supreme Court. I've got quite a number in the Court of Appeal, and many in the High Court, and then in the Lands Court, and then a bit of the Environment Court, and then the Employment Court. So together the cases are running are about, right now I've scaled down a bit. I think there are about 100 around that are running right now in the courts.
In a sea of political noise, one voice speaks with clarity, humility, and constitutional truth. Kenya's future needs leadership of principle, and Okiya Omtatah embodies it. If you believe in leaders who put the people first, share this video and subscribe to The African Journalist for more fearless analysis.